Hey buddy, welcome back to the channel. Today's story comes straight from Reddit, and honestly, I would have handled it differently if I were this guy. What about you? Let's break it down. I realized my neighbor was stealing my packages the exact moment my heart dropped into my stomach, because this time, it wasn't just some random online order. It was my medication. I remember standing on my porch in Austin, staring at the empty spot where the box was supposed to be. My phone clearly said delivered, 2:14 p.m. I had been home all day. No knock. No doorbell. Nothing. At first, I tried to be reasonable. Packages get misplaced. Drivers make mistakes. I even walked down the street, checking porches like some desperate fool, hoping maybe it got dropped off at the wrong house. But deep down, I already knew something wasn't right. This wasn't the first time. Over the past couple of weeks, I'd lost 3 packages. Small things, phone chargers, a pair of shoes, nothing urgent. Annoying, sure, but not enough to raise hell over. I blamed the delivery companies, shrugged it off, told myself it wasn't worth the stress. But this time, this was different. I went back inside, sat on the couch, and tried to calm down. My hands were shaking, not just from anger, but from that creeping feeling that someone was watching my house, waiting for deliveries, taking advantage of me like I was some easy target. That's when I remembered the cheap door camera I had installed a few days earlier. Honestly, I almost forgot about it. I grabbed my phone, opened the app, and scrolled back to the delivery time. What I saw made my blood run cold. There he was, Greg, my neighbor from 2 houses down. The same guy who waved at me every morning while watering his lawn. The same guy who once helped me jumpstart my car like we were some kind of friendly suburban duo. On the screen, he walked up to my porch, looked around, calm, casual, then picked up my package like it belonged to him and walked away. No hesitation, no guilt, just like that. I sat there in silence for a long minute, replaying the clip over and over again, hoping somehow it would change, that I'd misunderstood, that there was some explanation. But there wasn't. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't dealing with a misunderstanding anymore. I was dealing with a thief. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same thing. Greg casually walking up to my porch, like he owned the place, like my stuff was somehow his. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was personal. By morning, I had already made up my mind. I was going to confront him. Now, I'm not the kind of guy who looks for trouble. I work a normal 9 to 5, keep my lawn trimmed, wave at neighbors, mind my business. The kind of guy people don't expect to cause a scene. But that morning, I didn't care. I walked down the street, each step heavier than the last, until I stood in front of Greg's house. Everything looked normal, too normal. His truck was in the driveway, his porch clean, wind chimes gently moving like nothing had happened. I knocked. He opened the door after a few seconds, holding a coffee mug, acting like it was just another regular morning. "Hey man," he said, smiling. "What's up?" For a split second, I almost doubted myself. That smile, it was so casual, so convincing. But then I remembered the video. "I know you took my package," I said, straight to the point. His smile didn't disappear right away, but it changed. Just slightly. Enough for me to notice. "What are you talking about?" he replied, leaning against the doorframe like this was some kind of joke. "I have it on camera, Greg." That's when the air shifted. He took a sip of his coffee, slow, deliberate. Then he shrugged. "Cameras glitch all the time," he said. "You sure it wasn't someone else?" I felt my jaw tighten. "Don't do that," I snapped. "I saw you. Clear as day." There was a long pause, the kind that stretches just enough to make everything uncomfortable. Then he laughed. Not nervous, not defensive, just laughed. "Man, you're tripping," he said, shaking his head. "Why would I take your stuff?" That was the moment I understood exactly who I was dealing with. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a guy caught in a bad situation. This was someone who had done it before and gotten away with it. "I'm giving you one chance," I said quietly. "Bring it back. Today. No police, no drama." He looked at me, eyes flat now. No more fake friendliness. "Or what?" he asked. And just like that, any last bit of patience I had left was gone. I stood there for a second, staring at him, realizing something I probably should have understood earlier. This guy wasn't afraid of me. Not even a little. And honestly, that was my mistake. I turned around without another word and walked back home. My hands were clenched so tight my knuckles hurt. Part of me wanted to go back and kick his door in, drag my stuff out myself. But I knew that wouldn't end well for me. So instead, I did something smarter. I started planning. The first thing I did was file a police report. I showed them the footage, clear as day, Greg's face, Greg's hoodie, Greg taking my package. The officer nodded, took notes, said they'd look into it. That tone, you know the one. Polite, but not urgent. Translation? Don't expect much. And that's when I realized, if I wanted this to stop, I couldn't just rely on the system. I had to make sure Greg didn't just get away with it again. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, thinking through every option. Confronting him again wouldn't work. Calling him out publicly? Maybe. But that still wouldn't prove anything beyond what I already had. No, I needed something undeniable. Something he couldn't laugh off. That's when the idea hit me. I went online and ordered a few things. A small GPS tracker, one of those tiny ones you can hide inside a box, and something else I'd seen in a video once, a glitter bomb. Petty? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. 2 days later, everything arrived. I set it up carefully, making sure the tracker was hidden deep inside the box, taped under layers so it wouldn't be obvious. The glitter device sat right on top, disguised inside what looked like normal packaging. Then I sealed it. It looked perfect. Just another boring delivery. The next step was the easiest part. I placed the box right on my porch and waited. The waiting was the worst part. Every sound outside made me glance at my phone. Every passing car, every footstep, it all felt louder than usual. Hours went by. Then finally, my phone buzzed. Motion detected. I didn't even breathe as I opened the camera feed. And there he was again. Greg. Same calm walk. Same quick glance around. Same casual reach for something that wasn't his. He picked up the box, turned, and walked straight back to his house. I didn't move. I didn't stop him. I just opened the tracking app and watched the dot move. I watched that little blue dot move across the map like my patience leaving my body. Straight across the street, up the driveway, and then it stopped. Right inside Greg's house. For a second, I just stared at the screen, letting it sink in. No more guessing. No more, maybe it was someone else. I had him. Clean. Simple. Undeniable. But I didn't move. Not yet. Because I knew what was about to happen next. I stepped outside, closing my front door quietly behind me. The afternoon air in Austin felt heavy, like a storm was coming. Even though the sky was clear, everything was still. Too still. Then, Piopi. It was muffled, but unmistakable. A split second later, I heard it. What the? Greg's voice exploded from inside the house, followed by coughing, loud crashing noises, and a string of curses that echoed out into the street. I couldn't help it. I took a few steps closer, just enough to hear everything clearly. Are you kidding me? He shouted. There was another bang, like something hit the wall, then more coughing. I pictured it perfectly in my head. Glitter everywhere, sticking to everything, impossible to clean, impossible to ignore. Karma had just kicked his front door down, and I hadn't even touched him. A few seconds later, the front door flew open. Greg stumbled out onto his porch, covered, completely covered, in glitter. His hair, his face, his shirt. Even his arms sparkled in the sunlight like he'd just lost a fight with a disco ball. He looked furious. Then he saw me. We locked eyes. For the first time since all of this started, he didn't look confident. He didn't look amused. He looked caught. What the hell did you do? He yelled, pointing at me, his voice cracking somewhere between rage and panic. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't step closer. I think you opened something that wasn't yours, I said calmly. That hit him harder than anything else could have. For a moment, he didn't say anything. He just stood there, breathing hard, glitter falling off him with every movement. Then came the part he didn't expect. Sirens. Distant at first, but getting closer. His expression changed again. Anger turned into something else. Fear. Because this time, it wasn't just me anymore. The sirens got louder, cutting through the quiet neighborhood like a warning shot. Greg heard them too. I watched it happen in real time. The exact moment it clicked in his head that this wasn't just some stupid prank he could laugh off. His shoulders stiffened, his breathing slowed, and for the first time since I'd known him, he looked unsure. Did you call the cops? He asked, trying to sound tough, but there was a crack in his voice now. I didn't answer right away, because technically, I hadn't just called them. I had already filed a report 2 days ago. I had already given them the footage. And just before setting the trap, I updated everything. Told them I suspected ongoing theft, and that I might have a way to prove it. So no, this wasn't sudden. This was building for a while. You really should have just returned the package, I said quietly. That was all it took. He snapped. This is your fault, he shouted, stepping off his porch, glitter still falling off him with every move. You set me up. I almost laughed, but I held it in. Set you up? I repeated. Greg, you walked onto my property and took something that wasn't yours. Again. He opened his mouth to argue, but stopped, because deep down he knew. Then the police cars turned onto the street. 2 of them. They rolled in slow, lights flashing, not dramatic, but serious enough that every neighbor within sight suddenly found a reason to step outside. Curtains moved. Doors cracked open. People watched. Greg noticed that too. And now? Now he looked trapped. The officers stepped out, calm and professional. One of them glanced at Greg, covered in glitter, breathing hard, standing halfway between his house and mine, and raised an eyebrow. Sir, what's going on here? The officer asked. Greg tried to speak, but nothing came out at first. Then he pointed at me again. He rigged a package. That thing exploded in my house. The officer looked at me. I stayed calm. That package was delivered to my address, I said, and I have video of him taking it. Multiple times. I pulled out my phone and handed it over. The officer watched. Once. Then again. No reaction, but I could tell. That was enough. Sir, the officer said, turning back to Greg. Do you mind if we step inside your house for a moment? Greg hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Do I need a warrant? He asked, defensive again, but weaker this time. The second officer stepped forward slightly. We can get one, he said, or you can cooperate. Long pause. Greg looked around, at me, at the neighbors, at the patrol cars. Then his shoulders dropped. Fine. And that was the moment everything fell apart for him. I stood on my porch and watched them walk into Greg's house, the front door still hanging half open like it had nothing left to hide. For a minute, nothing happened. The neighborhood went quiet again, but not the normal kind of quiet. This was the kind where everyone's pretending not to watch, while absolutely watching. I could feel eyes on me from every direction. Curtains barely moved, doors cracked just enough. Nobody said a word. Then I heard it. Hey, come take a look at this. One of the officers' voices coming from inside. A few seconds later, the second officer walked back out, glanced at me, then spoke into his radio. His tone had changed, more serious now. That's when I knew. They found something. A lot of something. Greg came out about a minute later, but he didn't look like the same guy anymore. The anger was gone. So was the attitude. Even the panic had faded into something heavier. Defeat. His hands were behind his back, cuffed, and yeah, still covered in glitter. The image would have been funny if the situation wasn't so real. This guy who had been acting untouchable just minutes ago now looked like someone who realized he'd pushed things way too far. What did you find? I asked, keeping my voice steady. One of the officers stepped closer. Multiple packages, he said. Different names, different addresses. Some still unopened. I nodded slowly, letting that sink in. So I wasn't the only one. Not even close. Greg looked at me then. Really looked at me this time. No arrogance. No smirk. Just a tired, hollow expression. You really went all out for this, huh? He muttered. I shook my head. No, I said. You did. That hit harder than anything else I'd said all day. They led him to the patrol car, neighbors now fully outside, watching openly. No more pretending. People whispered, pointed. Someone even pulled out their phone. And then, just before they put him in the back seat, one of the officers turned to me. You did the right thing, he said. Simple, but it meant more than I expected. Because for a second there, I wasn't sure if I had. The street felt different after that. Not quieter, not louder, just different. Like something invisible had shifted, and everyone could feel it. The police cars pulled away slowly, taking Greg with them, and for a few seconds, nobody moved. Then, almost all at once, people started pretending again. Doors closing, curtains falling back into place, conversations starting in low voices. But it wasn't the same neighborhood anymore. Word spread fast. By the next morning in Austin, I didn't even need to check my camera to know something had changed. Packages sat untouched on porches. Delivery drivers actually knocked. People made eye contact a little longer than usual, like we all shared the same unspoken understanding. And Greg? He never came back. I heard later, from one of the neighbors, that the police connected him to multiple theft reports across the area. Turns out, he'd been doing this for months, maybe longer, just taking small things here and there, betting nobody would push back hard enough to stop him. For a while, he was right, until he wasn't. A few days after everything happened, I got a knock on my door. It was an older woman from down the street, someone I'd only waved to before. She held a small package in her hands and smiled, a little awkward but genuine. "They found this at his place," she said. "It's mine. I just wanted to say thank you." I didn't know what to say at first, so I just nodded. Because honestly, I hadn't done it for anyone else. I did it because I was angry, because I was tired of being taken advantage of. But standing there, looking at her, I realized something. It wasn't just about me anymore. That night, I sat on my porch, watching the sun go down, a fresh package sitting right beside my door. I left it there on purpose. No camera check, no stress, just trust. And nothing happened. No footsteps, no shadows, no one creeping up to take what wasn't theirs. For the first time in weeks, everything felt normal again. Funny thing is, I still find glitter sometimes. On the sidewalk, in the grass, even stuck in the cracks of the pavement. A reminder, because karma doesn't always come quietly. Sometimes it shows up loud, messy, and impossible to ignore. A couple weeks passed, and life settled into something that almost felt boring again. And I didn't mind that one bit. Work, groceries, weekends on the porch, everything went back to normal. But there was still this quiet shift in how people treated each other around here. Neighbors who barely nodded before now actually stopped to talk. Delivery drivers double-checked addresses. People paid attention. It was like Greg had accidentally done one good thing in his entire run here. He reminded everyone that ignoring problems doesn't make them disappear. One afternoon, I was trimming my lawn when a guy from across the street, Mark, I think, walked over. We'd never really talked beyond a quick wave before. "Hey," he said, scratching the back of his neck. "I had a couple packages go missing last month." I nodded. "Yeah, you're not the only one." He let out a short breath, almost like relief. "Figured," he said. "Just didn't think anyone would actually do something about it." That stuck with me, because he was right. Most people don't. Not because they don't care, but because it's easier to let it go. Less conflict, less stress. You tell yourself it's not worth it. Until it is. That night, I went back and watched the footage one last time. Greg walking up, taking the box, acting like nothing could touch him. It felt different now. Not because I was still angry, but because I wasn't. There was no satisfaction in seeing him get arrested. No victory lap. Just closure. He made his choices. I made mine. And somewhere in between, things balanced out. I deleted the video after that. Didn't need it anymore. These days, I still get packages almost every week. Sometimes I leave them out longer than I should, just to prove a point to myself. Nothing ever happens. No footsteps. No shadows. No one testing the line anymore. And every now and then, when the sun hits the sidewalk just right, I'll catch a tiny sparkle in the cracks of the concrete. Still there. Weeks later. A little reminder of how far things went, and how quickly they can change when someone finally decides they've had enough. Because the truth is, people like Greg don't stop on their own. They stop when someone makes them.